So the first thing that we are going to do is have Mrs. Black Bull come up and recite the complaint for the record and answer any questions that the council may have.
Can I have the secretary read the complaint for the record?
Yes.
Is there an oath to be administered to these statements?
To what statements?
To the complainant?
No, this is an informal proceeding, not a judicial proceeding, so no, there's not. Thank you.
Okay, it says to the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council from Black Bull Treasurer, Oglala Sioux Tribal Executive Board, dated 21st of July 2016, regarding complaint on Jackie Sears, Council Representative, Wakbomni District. Impeachment complaint under OST Ordinance 41-26. 3, any officer or any member of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council may be liable to impeachment for crimes, corrupt conduct, gross incompetency, malfeasance, or misdemeanor in office, but judgment in such case shall be not extended further than removal from office and disqualifications to hold any office of trust or profit under the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. The person accused nevertheless shall be liable to indictment, trial, judgment, and impeachment and punishment according to law. No person shall be liable to impeachment twice for the same offense. Charge 1, malfeasance, the wrongful or unjust doing of some act which the doer has no right to perform or which he has stipulated by contract not to do. It differs from misfeasance and non-feasance, which Title C 1, what is that?
You can just ignore the side.
Just all that.
Right.
Just ignore that.
Yes.
Okay. Charge 2, violation of Oglala Sioux Tribal Constitution, Article 4, Salaries, Section 1. The salaries and expense payments of the councilmen and other officers of Oglala Sioux Tribe may be paid out of available funds of the tribe with ordinances duly enacted.
Spaces, so in accordance with, for some reason there's extra spaces there, so that word is the.
In coordinates with
Yeah.
the duly enacted, provided that no council shall enact in any ordinance increasing the salaries per diem expense payments of councilmen during the existing term of office. Charge 3, corrupt conduct, violation of the oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, to include ordinances, resolutions, federal, state, and tribal law. Council Representative Jackie Sears was also in attendance of applicable OMB circular training March 10th through the 12th, 2016, into which OMB circular applicability and guidelines for federal monies was given. Charge 4, gross incompetency, lack of ability, legal qualifications, or fitness to discharge the required duty. Should I just skip over all that?
Yes, you can skip over the side.
Okay. In New York, the word incompetency is used in a special sense to designate the condition or legal status of a person who is unable or unfitted to manage his own affairs by reason of insanity, imbecility, or feeble-mindedness, and for whom therefore a committee may be appointed. And such a person is designated incompetent. Charge 5, breach of contract agreement between Oglala Sioux Tribe. Although not a lawful agreement under OST constitutional protections, Oglala Sioux Tribal Ordinance Resolution protections under the oath of office for Oglala Sioux Tribal Council Representative and officers. Jackie Sears did acknowledge the receipt of overpayment of funds and agreed with prior Oglala Sioux Tribal Oglala Sioux Tribe Treasurer Mason Bickrell to repay the received amount of $15,136 paid by check from the Oglala Sioux Tribe. Her tribal council salary was to be paid at $42,000. However, even when she was received her prior director salary of $61,672 per annum, she did not report it until 20 pay periods lapsed. Should I just read the whole thing? Okay. I am filing this as my official letter of information release and complaint to the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council for the following act committed by Jackie Sears, the council representative of Bumney District. During her capacity and tenure as a council representative, excuse me, for the 2012-2014 term, committed the act of knowingly attaining, endorsing, and cashing and spending an overpayment of payroll salary funds made to herself as the Wakabani District Council Representative. Jackie Sears attained payroll checks from the Oglala Sioux Tribe during the start of 2014 term for payroll at her previous rate of pay, which was significantly higher while employed with the Oglala Sioux Tribe. She knowingly converted the salary overpayment into a loan repayment contract which clearly violates the Oglala Sioux Tribe's Constitution and Article 6 by increasing the Tribal Council representative's salary. An agreement was made with prior OST Treasurer Mason Bickrell that a repayment of $15,136 would be paid with $75 biweekly from payroll, and with loans with zero balance to be remaining by the end of the term, which was December 2014. The agreement at the end of the 2012-2014 term with a balance remaining. Jackie Sears has continued to make $75 biweekly payment since re-elected for the 2014-2016 term. As of June 30th, 2016, the balance still owed is $10,111. In her contract with the Oglala Sioux Tribal Payroll Office, past Treasurer Mason Bickrell, this contract is an illegal contract for increasing council wages, which is a gross malfeasance impeachable offense. She violated her agreement to make larger payments when her federal income tax was filed and returned. Her agreement states that this would be paid off before her term ended. I bring this to your attention as this conversion of wage salary increase turned into a loan repayment plan, which is a clear violation of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Constitution. This is a contract that was not ratified by resolution and not ratified by the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. This contract violated the Constitution, as no one person can act arbitrarily in their own guise to make an illegal determination of this magnitude. Repayment based on the payment amount rate initially agreed upon, $75 biweekly, and that the lack of follow-up to the initial agreement, the amount will not be reimbursed to the Oglala Sioux Tribe by the end of the 2016 term. It is currently not in the confines of my position to renegotiate the contract of the previous Oglala Sioux Tribal Treasurer, as this is a breach of illegal contract agreement, as it was for her own personal gain and benefit. Please also be advised that currently exists is insofar as a means of reporting or entering a complaint for violation of tribal, state, and federal laws that are found reported, and with complaints within and between the two external leadership bodies of the Oglala Sioux Tribe, being that of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Executive Board members and or body that of the Oglala Sioux Tribe Tribal Council members, and or body in their official capacities upholding of the laws and the impeachment complaint process covered in OST Ordinance 41-26. 3, any officers or any member of the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council may be liable to impeachment for crimes, corrupt conduct, gross incompetency, malfeasance, or misdemeanor in office, but judgment in such cases shall not extend further than removal from office and disqualification to hold any office or trust or profit under the Oglala Sioux Tribal Council. The person accused nevertheless shall be liable to indictment, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. No person shall be liable to impeachment twice for the same offense. In accordance with ordinance number 41-26, I ask for the removal of Jackie Sears, Waukegan District Council Representative, from office. The initial indicator of acceptance and agreement in both leadership bodies capacities is the oath of office, stating with the agreement that the upholding of said laws will be followed to the oath taker's abilities, which is taken prior to office, and acting in the official capacities. Further, the above described act of malfeasance is in direct correlation of 4126 of the Oglala Sioux Tribe impeachment ordinance. What exists is a council representative in violation of such laws and found it to be true, and in legal liability and legal prosecution via documentation and witnesses. In adherence of the impeachment ordinance 41-26, I ask for the removal of Council Representative Jackie Sears in adherence of violation protocol as defined by the Oglala Sioux tribal ordinances.
Thank you. Now I'll let Melanie present what evidence that she has. Once she's finished presenting that evidence, then you will be allowed to ask questions of her.
In your packet is provided an agreement. And the agreement clearly specifies the terms of when this payment's to be paid back. In my capacity as treasurer, no individual should act outside their scope of duties. Any consultant contracts, any memorandum of agreements, any contracts, there's a process. It is not up to the treasurer to arbitrarily do agreements with any individual. As council knows, this agreement was done, and it was to satisfy the wrongdoing of the past, but it was done. There's no resolution, there is no ordinance that allows for this. And I can't stress that enough. No individual has the authority to enter into a contract arbitrarily. Upon a recommendation from a committee, it still has to be ratified by a governing body. The Constitution clearly states that council are to receive a set salary. It was approved upon and acted by this council. $42,000 was the set salary. In her agreement, she states that I will be making larger payments when my federal income tax is filed and returned to me. I will also make loans throughout the remainder of my term to pay off this debt before my term ends. The term ended as of fiscal year 2014. It carried over into this administration. This is why I'm bringing it forward. Payments were made in the amount of $75, and she would not have it paid off until the end of the term. She did come and approach me that she will do an agreement. She did present an agreement, and it is not in my authority to sign an agreement. It was done in the presence of other council representatives. The Constitution clearly states the amount of what a council member should be making. And it is a clear violation of the Constitution. A Constitution in which we all take an oath that we will uphold. As I said before, there is no middle black and there is no middle area. It's black and white. It is before you. The attachments are there. There's a big difference when you're getting paid on council. Council salaries were at 2019. She had a direct deposit of $29.65 per hour. There was an increase. We're all responsible adults. Some of us have direct deposits, some of us receive a check. There's no excuse for that. Upon legislation and our monthly meetings, our council meetings, we approve of the treasurer's report on the monthly basis. A monthly basis which each and every one of you vote to approve of the treasurer's report. Minutes are provided. A vote is taken, a roll call vote, in which everybody votes to approve the treasurer's report. In that report, it has the general fund budget. It has the indirect cost budget. And if there's discrepancies at that time, it is raised. Someone would request correction be made. It is the responsibility of individuals to bring these findings forward. At several meetings, they require and they request the general fund budget. The general fund budget council have been wanting to know where they're sitting, where they're standing, wanting to know where they're at in their travel. They have every right to go up there and request that information. That is available. It's not withheld. My argument is an agreement was made. She clearly violated her agreement, whether it was legal, not legal. This governing body and the treasurer do not have the authority to waive a salary or increase a salary in the same term. All the information is provided. It's black and white. She did approach me in my office, and she did another agreement like the one that was presented. She came and approached me twice in the presence of council. I do not feel like I need to be bullied or pressured. That is why I'm bringing it forward. The Constitution is what governs us. Our ordinances govern us. Resolutions govern us. There is no way around it. If you're going to allow for something like this, it is wrong. It's a constitutional violation. Tribal council and executive board are held to a higher standard. And it should be treated as such. I can't express that enough. The law is the law. There is no gray area. There is no delineating from law. There is no special exception based on emotion. There is no special exception made for the failure of ourselves to control our own financial responsibilities. The law is law. It's black and white. It's clear. She had a responsibility to do payments and pay when she got her federal income tax to pay it off. That did not happen. It is in your hands. You make the decision. If you violate your own constitution, you're opening Pandora's box. This information, I'm happy that it's read for the record. And I'm happy that you have it provided in front of you. And you have a copy of the agreement. And I would like to have permission to pass out the agreement that she brought to my office. Is that possible?
Was it entered into?
It was after, the day after I had filed. And it's the same agreement. She acknowledged that she wasn't going to pay it off, and she wanted me to enter into a contract or agreement to allow her time to pay it off.
I think you can, yeah, you can give it to everybody.
This was presented on August 3rd at 12:36 p.m. She came in my office at 12:36 p.m. on August 3rd, and she came back in the afternoon around 3:30. I'll have them pass it out.
Hey, Brad. Hey, Brad. You go. How about run?
Do you have anything else you want to add?
I'm also asking that they look at Ordinance 0819 that establishes the salaries for council representatives at $42,000, the president at $66,000, the vice president at $52,000, the tribal secretary at $45,000, the tribal treasurer at $59,000, and the fifth member at $42,000. This was enacted on July 15th, 2008. And I will pass around the treasurer's report for the dates of the following: February 2nd, March 12th, March 26th, May 9th, June 11th, June 27th, July 30th, September 3rd, September 24th, 29th, March 5th, March 25th, and May 28th. The roll call vote of approving the treasurer's report.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before questions? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions at all for right now? Hearing none, then Ms. Sears, I'll allow you to present your response. Okay. Ms. Sears, I'm sorry, she has witnesses that she wants to bring, so we'll let her do that.
The first witness will be Dean Patton.
Mr. Patton, go ahead.
Dean, can you please explain the timeline of the issue at hand?
Actually, the current issue that I guess brings us here today is it was several months after Ms. Sears' first term in the office, and at that, it was a few months later. I can't remember the exact time frame, but the payroll supervisor at the time came to me with some information on this issue that Ms. Sears was overpaid for a certain amount of time due to the fact that her OST council pan was not entered into the system in error. So at that time, when we found that out, we did enter the correct personnel action notice into the payroll system, therefore paying her the correct wage at the time.
Wait till you're done.
Okay. And once we found out about the issue, we did contact Ms. Sears, the treasurer at the time, Mason Bickrow, and myself, visited with Ms. Sears in my office, informed her of the issue that we found out. And I recall at the time that we did inform Ms. Sears that we did overpay you. We need to find some type of a solution to get this money back into the payroll system or into the account, knowing that you're a tribal council member and you basically can't get wages in excess what's approved per tribal council. At that time, I can't recall the specific solution we tried to come up with, but I do recall during that time that Ms. Sears did actually make the comment with me and Mason Bickrow sitting there that she will just basically go to the bank, make a loan or whatever, and come back and pay back the tribe the difference. So during that time, once that was stated, I assumed that that was all going to be taken care of. From that point on, I kind of just left it alone until later on. I can't, and forgive me for dates and everything, I'm not really good with exact dates. And so we actually got into, there was an ethics commission that we had to report to. They came and interviewed myself on the specifics of this issue, which I never received a copy of the Ethics Commission's final determination on this, so I don't know what their final rule was on it. But yes, from the beginning of time, when the payroll supervisor brought it to my attention, we did inform Ms. Sears of the situation, the issue, to resolve it. And at the time, I thought we did have it resolved by Ms. Sears making a comment she would go to the bank to come back and pay the balance off.
Mr. Greenwald has a question before he does. You said that there was an ethics investigation on this issue?
Yes, there was. At the time, the tribal council did have an ethics commission or ethics board at that time.
With regard to this specific issue?
This specific issue,
And
correct.
you don't know what the outcome was?
I don't know what the final determination at that time was. I've never seen the report.
Okay. Mr. Greenwald?
Dean, I have a few questions, and the reason why I'm asking is because I'm new to tribal council. So when we came into tribal council, being new, we had stated in several of our meetings over and over that we wanted to make sure that when we do payroll, travel, different things, that we wanted to make sure that, because we didn't really know the rules yet, because we're brand new, to making sure that staff that are on board here knew the rules and would be there to make sure that our tribal council don't step outside of those boundaries. One of those things is doing a pan. So how long did it take by the time your staff discovered that a pan, either was it submitted or was it done right?
You know what, I guess the pan was actually submitted, it was just overlooked for, and I can't recall how much pay periods it was before it was finally discovered that the new pan for Ms. Sears was not entered into the system.
Okay, and once an employee, like I signed off on the pan, right, when I got here, once that is signed, whose responsibility is to make sure that that gets processed through the system and into the system?
Actually, the process is all the signatures on there. The pan actually got to where it was supposed to go. It was just mistakenly in error,
An error, you said?
in error,
Okay.
okay? And
So oftentimes we look at policy and procedure, the financial management system, our policies and procedures and stuff like that. When an issue like this comes up with overpayment, how is it normally handled within the tribe?
you know, and I really can't elaborate on that because I'm not actually working in the payroll department to, you know, I guess correctly comment on that. But just based off of when I was supervising over those areas was, it doesn't happen very often at all.
Okay. And my understanding that this case, of course, it was the last administration that this originated from, but my understanding was that this had been sent up to the U.S. Attorney's Office for review. What is your understanding of that, the response from the U.S. Attorney's Office on this issue?
I haven't heard nothing back and no response back.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Does anyone else have any questions? Yes, Mr. Ross.
My question goes back to the legality of since it happened in a prior administration, I mean, and it's being brought forward, the only thing I could see is just the agreement portion of it, but do we have the authority to go backwards as a tribal council to actually have this hearing on issues that happened in a prior administration?
The short answer to that is yes, and that's an issue that we can discuss in our final discussions. Is there anybody else have any questions for Mr. Patton? Yes.
I notice in this log, I don't know what it's called, but anyways, it shows 12/10/2002 pay date. She's paid at the council salary. However, 12/14/2012, her pay rate goes up to $29.65. How is it that one date she's at council salary, 4 days later, her pay rate goes up?
These, I mean, these spreadsheets themselves, they were most likely prepared by the payroll department or the payroll accountant. So at this time, I don't think I could answer that without messing this up, because I have not prepared these.
I would like to call the payroll.
Does anybody else have any questions of Mr. Patton? She is going to be calling the payroll individual to discuss some of the things as well. Yes, absolutely.
Dean, I did get your letter because I did file this through ethics and I got the ruling. And I do have the letter, the statement that you had submitted to the ethics committee that Ms. Ledoux came into your office very concerned that during her reconciliation of payroll records, she encountered an error in Ms. Sears's pay rate. You know, and then I also have, you know, Ms. Ledoux informed me that after Ms. Sears' rate was changed to her 8 hours, she mistakenly forgot to reset the pay back to the rate of tribal council representative. And it says, Ms. Ledoux also informed me that because the pay rate was never reset, Ms. Sears's wages was in excess of $15,000 amount mandated by ordinance for wages of tribal council. Ms. Ledoux did issue a memo stating that this was totally her fault and accepted full responsibility for this error. You know, I have this, and I have Alice has the documents of this.
Ms. Sears, you'll be able to present your evidence. Do you have any questions for Mr. Patton right now?
Yeah, do you recall saying these comments of your,
You know, and it's been a few years, and as I stood up here and stated just briefly ago, is yes, we did in error put the wrong salary into the system, and I guess I stated that very clearly.
and you also stated in there, again, I recall no progress or solution into matter was ever completed.
And I know at that time, before we met with you, we could not sit down, I mean, we did not come to no resolution at that time. And I also did make that statement.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Patton?
I have a question.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 200.403?
No, not right off the top of my head, no, I'm not.
Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. The Code of Federal Regulations, Section 200.403, the code lists the factors affecting allowability of costs. Subsection 200.403G states, be adequately documented. In my opinion, if a payroll transaction has conflicting hours and/or pay rates of transactions, this would be deemed disallowable.
Yes, with the new, and I guess with the new OMB circulars, the Part 200s and not only with the new ones coming out, in my position as comptroller of the Oglala Sioux tribe, when I review documents, that's something I always have to assure that the support documents are there, everything is justified to make that cost allowable to the federal funding agency.
So based on a statute, how do you feel this increased, overpaid salary wage?
Based on what the documents that during that issue and up to this point with any other support documents that aren't there, you know, these type of costs are, in my opinion, will be deemed unallowable.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dean, during that time period, now I understand that a certain amount of the council's salary comes from general fund, a certain amount comes from indirect costs. What was the composition at that point?
It was 75-25, I'm pretty sure.
Federal to general?
75 or 25 or 50-50, yeah, it was. I think it was 50-50, Mike.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Patton? I have a question.
Yes.
Was the individual who was responsible for the mistake, was she disciplined?
Yes.
Okay. And was the overpayment that was made that could be deemed disallowable of any fault of Mrs. Sears?
I'm going to have to say yes and no, due to the fact that, no to the fact that we entered in the wrong salary rate, never adjusted it back. Yes, to the point where if Ms. Sears reviewed her check stubs in a timely manner, I think that also would have been caught by herself during that time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else of Mr. Patton? Do you have any other questions, Abby?
No.
Okay, you're excused. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You have one more question?
Yeah, Mr. Patton, when you're talking about it could be disallowed, that was back then. Do you have proof that what had happened in my instance was disallowed?
In the audit itself, I don't have, in the audit for 2014? I didn't see anything in there that was disallowed during that time.
Thank you. You're excused.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
Payroll. Tony, what is the salary of each council?
I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Tony Montillo, and I am the OST payroll accountant.
Can you explain the timeline of events that occurred and where it is today?
Do you have any of them have reading glasses? Okay. Would you repeat the question, please?
What is the salary of each council?
The council receives $20.19 an hour.
Can you explain the chain of events from the time this first occurred in which it carried over to this administration?
What we do in the payroll office is when the new council comes in, the personnel actions, they're called PANs, are completed in the HR department and they're routed through the system. They come into the payroll office. I enter the personnel actions and I adjust it to be 50-50. Half of it comes from general fund, the other half from IDC. That amount was done. We ran a payroll and Ms. Sears did receive, I'm trying to figure this out. The first she received a small check for the first hours. It wasn't a full 80 because they come in and they don't receive a full 80. I believe it was 64. Do you have any of that paperwork that I gave you? And so the first check she got was for $20.19. And that she received for 16 hours on December 10th, 2012. Then what happened was she was a former director of the higher ed program. Roseanne does those. We do those during off payroll week. Her dollar amount per hour had to be changed. And I think everyone has this in their packet. You'll see that on December 14th, 2012, she received a payout for her, that's actually her last hour plus her annual leave for the director of the higher ed. And then the amount was not changed back.
Can you explain what happened this administration? Can you read the agreement for the record?
Again, this happened in the year 2012, so to the best of my ability, I will try to remember. We had what was called the government shutdown. So Dr. Zephyr, Mr. Patton, they had asked me to do some projections of what actual cost would be because individuals were going to have a cut in hours. So at that time, I ran for indirect cost and the general fund. Gave them projections based on 64 hours and I believe 72. And at that time, I discovered that there was a discrepancy in Jackie's hourly rate. I brought that to my supervisor's attention. At the time, it was Dean Patton. And at that, I had the authority to change it because I do the PANs and enter the PANs to bring the salary down. So as soon as I found it, I corrected the rate and let my supervisor know. The agreement that she did is, I think it's, do you want me to read this?
Well, you're mentioning agreement. I guess whenever you had deliberations, discussions, can you explain to the council what was agreed upon, what was not agreed upon in terms of repayment?
Okay. The agreement was made with Mason Bickrow, the treasurer at the time, and Jackie Sears, Wakbomni District Representative. This agreement is this is actually a letter to Roseanne saying I had informed the Finance Committee of the overpayment of my salary as a council. Although they stated for the record that I should not have to pay this back because it was not my fault, I want to be fair with the other council that I should make this right and pay it back. I am unable to make a full one-time payment, but I will be making payments throughout the rest of my term. I authorize you to take $75 biweekly out of my payroll, I'm assuming check. I will be making larger payments when my federal income tax is filed and returned to me. I will make loans throughout the remainder of my term to pay off this debt before my term ends. Her term ended December 2014. I understand my overpayment is $15,136. I'm making the best effort on my part to be honest and ethical to do what is right. I appreciate you working with me on this matter. And it was concurred by Mason Bigcrow.
Has any agreements been initiated to pay it off at one time, one lump sum? Were there any other offers?
To my knowledge, no. When you had asked that, I give you a balance of what was owed. I did ask Ms. Sears if there was additional payments that she made, possibly straight to the revenue office, and she let me know there was none.
Was there ever any counter offer to have you do larger payments?
Not to me, but I don't have the authority to accept. I would have referred it to my supervisor.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, you're excused, thank you. Do you have any other witnesses?
Can I call Kathy Janice, please? Can I call my next witness? I'll skip over Kathy. Can I call Larry Eagleby? Larry, can you state your name for the record?
My name is Lawrence Ray Eagleby.
Can you describe your capacity? I apologize. Can you let the council and the public know, have you ever sat on this tribal council?
Last administration, I sat on this tribal council.
And sitting on the council, what is your knowledge of contractual processes, legal agreements, and who does this need to be ratified by? Can you explain the process?
Well, the process is already in there in place in any one of your bylaws. And that's what we go by, and anyone wants to contest it, they come through this body. Well, at first it should go through a committee. One of the committees, then this body will make the decision.
What is your understanding of the Constitution?
I got some issues with that, but my understanding is that the Constitution is it was put in place there by people way before us and gave us the laws to govern our society by.
Can you read this section 1 of the Constitution?
The salaries and expense payments of the councilmen and other officers of the Oglala Sioux tribe may be paid out of available funds of the tribe in accordance with the ordinances duly enacted, provided and no council shall enact any ordinance increasing the salaries or per diem expense payments of councilmen during the existing term of office.
What is your knowledge of an agreement?
The agreement on Ms. Sears?
Yes.
Well, this came up during our administration, and they said Ms. Sears was receiving her director's pay instead of the councilman's pay. So we met on it, and it was decided that, you know, we didn't see no fault on hers. It was the fault of probably payroll. So Ms. Sears, eventually it just went away. Ms. Sears advised that she made an agreement with the then treasurer, Mason Bigcrow, that she was gonna repay it.
And that's all your knowledge of knowing, that's all you know, correct? That she did enter into an agreement. Was that agreement ever provided to the council? Was it ever ratified by any governing body? Was it ever ratified by any committee?
Part of my knowledge, no. The agreement was made between, I guess, her and the treasurer. We've never seen any written agreement.
To your knowledge, does the treasurer have the authority to delineate away from the Constitution?
The treasurer does not have the power to do that, but you have to understand there's many things happen that is not in accordance with this Constitution. That does happen. So, in all fairness, it went away, I feel, because treasurer at the time didn't push it, because we all thought the agreement, that was the agreement.
So having been on the council and taking the oath of office, how do you view your capacity as a tribal council representative? How do you view yourself? Are you ethical?
Yeah, I view myself as very ethical, and I don't know that anybody will stand up here and say they are unethical. But I pride myself in the honesty of any position I'm in. And even in the way I govern my life, honesty it's always a part of your life. People know when you're dishonest, and it comes out in you, the dishonesty, and anybody can pick up on it.
Thank you. I have my next.
Oh, no, we have questions for my minute. Do you have any questions for, yes?
Hi, Larry. Last administration, you sat on council with me, and at that time, did tribal council or anybody say that, you know, gave me a bill or directed me to pay back this mistake that had happened to me, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, no. I didn't see never was a bill or. The only thing we had was your word with agreement, and the treasurer didn't come in and make any complaints that would say you didn't have an agreement.
Any other questions? Yes.
Mr. Rigo, any time during your administration, when all this was going on, did anybody make a determination that there was intent by Ms. Sears to defraud the tribe or steal from the tribe in reference to this specific complaint?
No. The, it was brought to our attention that it happened that she was still receiving the director's pay. So in a committee, we met and we were satisfied that there was an agreement and no harm done, is that she's paying it back. So it just died from there.
What is your view on a breach of an agreement?
What is my view? My view on an agreement is between two parties. They agree on whatever the matter is, and you fulfill that agreement. Whether it's, unlawful or not, there's an agreement made, whether it's signed or by a handshake. You still have integrity to abide by your agreement. But I never once heard the treasurer to say, Ms. Sears reneged on an agreement. Or to go further, is that there was no committee that it was brought to that said there was an agreement broken. So in our mind, well, my mind, that it just, the agreement, she's repaying it, and that's all we knew. Or I knew.
Yes.
Mr. Eaglebo, any time during the 2-year administration, had any committee or any person brought charges against Ms. Sears for impeachment of these charges that you're aware of?
No.
Any other questions? Okay, you're excused.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy Janice.
Is it on?
Yeah, introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, council and visitors. My name is Kathy Janice. I'm from Manderson, and I sat in this circle for 8 years.
What is your thought, I guess I'm going to ask you, what is your knowledge of a salary increase?
A salary increase for the council? Or a salary increase for anyone?
First, the salary increase for anybody.
For anyone?
Yes.
I guess it depends on tenure. How long have you been on the job? Whether you had an education to perform better?
What is your knowledge of the council salary?
The council, the last salary increase the council received was in 2008 by ordinance, and it was set at $42,000. This council can increase the salary for their council, but it has to be the incoming council, not for themselves.
During your duration as a council representative, at any time, has any council ever increased their salary arbitrarily?
Not that I know of, no.
What is the process for that?
There isn't a process. Like I said, that depends on the present council to increase the salary for the next incoming. There is nothing in the Constitution or anywhere that you get an increase in your salary presently.
Does the tribal treasurer have the authority to increase one individual council's salary?
No, no.
Does the treasurer have the authority to make an agreement to pay back for an.
Like I said, that has never happened during my tenure as a council representative, so I wouldn't be able to answer that. But I don't think the treasurer has the authority to increase anyone's salary.
Does the tribal treasurer have the authority to delineate away from the Constitution and ordinances and policy?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your
Anyway,
time.
Just a moment, let's see if anybody has any questions for you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Janice? No? Were you on the council, were you on the finance committee during this time?
No, I was never on the finance committee.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Yes. Thank you.
Accused. Do you have any other witnesses? Okay. Anybody have any questions of Ms. Blackbull before we move forward? Yes, before we do that though, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask. I want to clarify what your charges are. I keep hearing that you're saying that the agreement is invalid, but yet that she breached an invalid agreement. So I need a clarification. Are you asking the alternative for charges, or are you asking for all of them?
I'm asking for her removal. She breached an agreement, an illegal agreement. Yes, she did agree to have it paid up in that agreement on a specific date. That was not abided by. The treasurer does not have the authority to do any agreement and violate the Constitution to increase in salary. It was a violation on both parties. It was negligent of Councilman Jackie Sears. It was negligent on the tribe. It was negligent on all parties involved, and it was an illegal act to violate the Constitution. That agreement was also she breached her agreement with the prior treasurer, and she tried to initiate another agreement with myself. She approached me on 2 occasions. I do not have the authority to get a salary increase and say, use an excuse to say, I didn't notice it in my checking account. I didn't notice it on my check stub. That is a poor excuse to not know that you still had your director's salary from the prior administration and correct it. That is the tribal treasurer's responsibility, and that is a violation of this governing body to allow for a violation of the Constitution. She initiated an agreement. I did not agree to that agreement because it still was reflected in her documentation as a salary increase. No one person, no one body can delineate away from the Constitution.
I'm still a little unclear here. You're saying that the tribal treasurer violated his duty by entering into an agreement with her, and she's responsible for his violation of the duty.
It was a violation on her part. She was a part of the vote whenever it was approved every month, his treasurer's report. In that treasurer's report, it has everything in the indirect cost budget, everything in the general fund budget. Council have an opportunity to review that. If there's any discrepancies, they make those corrections. That was never done in this time period of 10 months. And to initiate a contract or an agreement with her violates the Constitution because it increased her salary. At that time, she should have paid the full amount back. That didn't happen. She diverted and allowed and changed it over to a loan to pay it back.
How did her entering into this contract violate the Constitution?
Her violating it, she signed it. She was supposed to have it paid off.
Where in the
not paid off.
no, that's a part of the agreement. That's not the Constitution. Where in the Constitution does it say she cannot enter into this agreement?
Wage and salaries. If you do it for one, then you do it for everybody else.
Where-
Right here.
Where is your proof that she increased her salary as opposed to that the payroll department made a mistake?
I'm not gonna question. It's in there, black and white. She should have paid it off.
And then my last question goes to the void. You're saying that the agreement is void because Mason didn't have the authority to enter into it, correct?
Yes.
How can she violate a void agreement?
Mason does not have the authority to do an agreement without ratification from this governing body. Any type of memorandum of agreement, contract, has to come through a governing body. It has to come through the finance committee. It has to go through the tribal council. There was no such resolution in place that justified and allowed for this.
I can understand that. I get your argument on that. But how can she violate an agreement that is void?
Negligence. Negligence on her part. We all get paid.
But
She-
I don't think you
she-
hear what I'm saying. If an agreement is void, it's void ab initio, which means from the beginning. So if the agreement's no good from the very beginning, how could she violate it? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say? Okay. Ms. Sears, your turn. Sorry, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.